At this point, the Resident Evil series has become a lot like its enemies. Just when you think it's dead, it comes back in a new form and stronger than before. You play as Ethan. It's been 3 years since his wife Mia mysteriously disappeared. However, he soon gets a message from her saying she's still alive somewhere in the American South. Apparently the OkCupid hunt hasn't been kind to our boy here, so Ethan sets off to find Mia in the middle of bumfuck Louisiana. Unlike the conventional damsel in distress tropes, he actually finds her pretty quickly. Don't worry though, the horror trope of the black guy dying first is still here. I guess some tropes never die. Anyway, after finding Mia, things go south pretty fast. One serious chainsaw incident later, and we're introduced to the Baker family for a pleasant family dinner. Naturally, Ethan wants to escape, and maybe save Mia if he can, but the Bakers aren't going to make it easy for him. I could go further in depth, but this game is a better experience going in blind. With that said, I may give away some important details out of context. Ethan is a good avatar for the player. A little boring, sure, but at least he's not a whiny little bitch. He's quiet when he needs to be and emotes when appropriate. He's a blank enough slate to project onto, but still relatable. When Mia eventually goes psycho, he has no issue defending himself. We don't hear any complaining about how torn up he is over giving his wife the axe. As far as Mia goes, let's just say she's my second favorite monster-like girl named Mia.
Fucking degenerate.
She's okay, but it seems she gets captured and tries to kill Ethan way too many times for me to like her. She's not completely useless though, and helps out Ethan later in the game. The Bakers are the main draw to Resident Evil 7. They're crazy, hard to kill, and give the whole game character. Each section you fight them in feels unique, from the Immortal Jack, bug-infested Marguerite, and the Saw-like games with Lucas. They differentiate each arc and keep the game from dragging on. It's even more obvious in the final stretch of the game, where it loses a lot of its charm without them. The story isn't particularly amazing, but it's above average for the horror genre. The ending is a bit lukewarm, but my only major issue with the story is the completely forced and useless choice that happens. Near the end of the game, you have to choose between your wife, Mia, the whole reason you came to this godforsaken swamp, or Zoe, a girl who's been helping you over the phone. Now you may think to yourself, why would you even consider a stranger you met for the first time over your wife? And unfortunately, that thought didn't cross Capcom's mind. Full disclosure, I chose Zoe just to see what would happen, and the end result made no fucking sense. But this is a horror game, so is it scary? I'd say for the most part, yeah. You get a decent amount of jump scares, and let's say a modest amount of gore and grossness, but the main draw to Resident Evil 7 is the enjoyable setting. The eerie swamp is covered with psychotic white trash and those fucking tar monsters with claws ready to eat your face off. The constant threat of danger makes this whole experience tense and builds quite the atmosphere. And it's an atmosphere that's assisted further with the fantastic gameplay. This game feels like a love child of Outlast and the first Resident Evil. The first-person perspective makes moments more personal, in addition to limiting your vision, which makes the idea of Farmer Joe and his family sneaking up behind you all the more frightening. But unlike Outlast, you can run, but you can't hide. While also including the old-school menu system and a select few nods to the original game, Resident Evil 7 also introduces combat to the mix. It gives the player just enough tools to put up a fight, while still limiting them. Aiming is clunky, running is slow, and most of your weapons suck. What the shit is this? A potato gun? If all handguns do this much damage, I can see why every southerner is against gun control. It'd be like putting restrictions on fucking safety scissors. New to the series is blocking. When you see an enemy ready to slap you into next Sunday, you have the option to raise your arms up like you're about to get shoved into a high school locker. You take less damage, and it adds quite a bit to the frantic, struggling nature of the combat. When you add all of these elements up, the end result is a game where each encounter is a true fight or flight scenario. You're never running away all the time like in Outlast, or just taking out mobs of enemies like in Resident Evil 4. Deciding to run or stand your ground is a delicate balance that RE7 nails to a T, because both options are effective in their own right. You need to act fast and decide whether fighting these enemies, which don't even reward you with drops, is worth it. And I've never played a game that does this so well. I was also a fan of the addition of the VHS tapes. Christ, there's a sentence that hasn't been uttered in 10 years. Whatever. You occasionally find these VHS tapes which show you previous victims. You play from their point of view in a linear path which helps you discover more obscure answers to puzzles. It's brilliant game design. It's basically a playable hint that also fleshes out the backstory. If you're into that whole replayability thing, there's a Madhouse mode once you finish the game the first time. It's more difficult and enemy and item spawns change, so you won't know where everything is on your second run. Now that all that gushing is over, it's time for the nitpicks. While the bakers are fun and interesting, the common tar monster enemies could be better. They're creepy, sure, but there's only like 4 different kinds, so a little more enemy variety would have been nice. Also, feel free to chalk this up to me being a dumbass, but I thought the game could have been designed a little better for some of the earlier fights. From the beginning, you're rewarded with plot progression by fighting both Mia and Jack, but then Jack is immortal and I'm still salty about wasting 30 fucking bullets on him and scraping by with only a few rounds in the beginning of the game. But again, this isn't a big deal compared to everything else. Resident Evil is one of the strongest games to come out in 2017. It takes modern horror game trends and combines them with the old school Resident Evil flair. If you already haven't for whatever reason and are a fan of the horror genre, you should check out this game. In the meantime, I'm gonna wait for Resident Evil 10 when Capcom revitalizes that series after milking this idea to death. Resident Evil 7 gets an A-. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's been a while since this game actually was released, but I finally got around to playing it, and this game is honestly a Game of the Year contender for me. But I guess since it has been so long since it released, feel free to tell me your thoughts. Did you like it? Were there some things that you hated that I missed? Anyway, later.